This is the CUNYCast, smart voices, good stories, and thought-provoking conversation from the City University of New York. I'm Rick Firstman.
I said, wow, I'm going to class. And I saw all these kids rushing and going back and forth. A few of them would think I was a professor. They'd say, oh, where is this room? I said, well, I'm not a professor. Right. That was the beginning. I just melded into the school. I mean, it was like, I'm going to do this.
One day in 2016, Ciro Scala walked into a classroom at City College and could hardly believe where he was. It had been 56 years since his last class. He had dropped out of CCNY under the stress of working full-time and commuting from Staten Island. But now, in his mid-70s and after a successful business career, he was determined to come back and finally get a college degree. And in fact, over the next 4 years, he went on to earn both a bachelor's and a master's from CCNY's Colin Powell School for Civic and Global Leadership. And now he's fulfilling his lifelong dream to be a teacher. And then some. He created a workshop program to help first-generation college students at his alma mater navigate the same kinds of challenges he faced when he was a young first-gen student himself. Ciro's inspiring story was recently told in an article in the New York Times, and he joins me here on the CUNYcast to talk about his remarkable journey. Welcome, Ciro.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yours is such a CUNY story, and it's one that has such a nice arc connecting generations. So let's start at the beginning of your story. It's 1959. You're 18 years old. You're the first in your family to go to college. You're at City College, but going at night because you're working full time. And before long, it's all too much and you drop out. And that becomes a very poignant and pivotal decision. So talk about that time in your life. And let's start talking about your childhood. What was it like growing up?
Well, my parents, we had a family of 5, 3 sisters and 2 boys. We lived in a cold water flat, which I'm not sure everybody understands what that is. There's no heat. So I lived in, I would say, some sort of a neighborhood ghetto in a way. It was very, Italian-American. Growing up, we lived on the street. The park was the street. We played in the street. And that's how life was. The summertime, we had the hydrant going and all that stuff, and we slept on the roof sometimes. It was too hot. Just to tell you an example, my sisters would, when we had to really wash or bathe, as we would say it, they would take the kitchen over, and we'd have to close the door, and they would wash in the kitchen. So there was no bathroom. It was a toilet.
Right.
So that's how we grew up. And then finally, we moved to Staten Island. Our family, my parents were not what I would call interested. Their interest was not education. The interest in my family was go to school, go to high school if you did, and then get a job and contribute in that way to the well-being of the family. It wasn't that it was a negative. It was never part of their mantra. They didn't care about it. I, as being the youngest and a little more out there, when it came time for me to graduate high school, I decided to explore going to college. And luckily, I had a great advisor at high school who sort of pushed me a bit. And I just went to apply. It was like City College. I just wanted to go to City College. I mean, that's all I knew. Was it either Brooklyn College, City College? I picked City College.
Right. And you were working in high school, and then you're starting college, but you're keeping this full-time job during the week, and then going to school at night. So that was really tough for you.
It was. I would say it was probably put more stress on me than I even thought I had, because I had that full-time job was actually a full-time job. But the traveling was really what got me down. It was really too much. I mean, I didn't get to bed till, I would say, 1 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock, almost 2 o'clock, depending on what was going on at school, testing. And I had to get up at 6, get dressed, take the bus, take the ferry, take the subway to the office, then take the subway to the school. It was something I just said, you know what, I'll put it off. I can always go back to school, as many people say, and I just applied myself to the business. That's what I did. I just said, this is what I'll do.
So you leave school. And you wanted eventually to be a teacher. That was your ambition at that point,
Pretty
right?
much after high school, that was what I planned on doing. When I went to college, City College, the goal was to get a degree and teach.
Right.
That was what I wanted to do.
So you drop out with thinking that at some point you'll go back, but you go on to you were in the textile business and you went on to build a very successful life, despite your lack of a college degree.
I have to say I was probably lucky, maybe, but I just did very well. I can't say any more about it. I just took to it, and they saw that, and I was promoted and promoted and promoted. And at that time, college actually began to fade. It was taking really a back seat because the career was very big. I mean, I worked myself up to, as I said, not to be too boastful, vice president marketing and sales. I really ran, but I didn't have a degree.
Right. So
I didn't
this
have a
was
diploma. I was not very happy that I couldn't tell people. People would say, "Well, where did you go to school?" When you're traveling on the. Well, I went to City College, but I wouldn't go further to tell them I graduated.
Yeah.
So I never could say that, and I hated that. I hated that. Not because of that, but because I said, "Well, I don't feel like I have accomplished anything if you didn't get that degree."
even though you were advancing in this career and you were doing so well.
Rick, it was mostly it was like the career was sort of something to do while in like holding that back, going to something else was a stepping stone to make me still going back and getting my diploma.
So you got this big job at this big company that does home goods, and then you start your own company.
Then
right?
my wife and I started our own company. We saw the import business beginning to blossom, and we did that. And I went overseas. I got an agent. I went to China. I went to India, and I just actually went to the factories and we began to design home textiles, which is, your viewers may know, it's bedding and sheets and things like that. And we did that very well. We were very successful for quite a while. We sold the better stores, the higher quality stores, all over the country. And that lasted up until 2014, 2015. We had the company. We sold it at that time. And then Ciro was sort of left in another world. I didn't have my career. The business was sold. What do you do with the rest of your life? And right away, what popped up in my head, get back to school, do it.
But you're in your 70s already at that point, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people would say, okay, I've had this successful career. I'm going to relax. But this was something that had kind of always been with you. You wanted to go back.
It was like another voice coming to me saying, now you can do it. And just to say, I don't spend a lot of time on age in the numerical form. I never did think about it. I only thought about, you do what you're doing, and then certainly nature will take its course. So I decided to go ahead and explore getting back into school, which wasn't easy because my records were in the high school. They couldn't find them and all that stuff. It was very difficult. I finally, to make a long story short, I finally found someone at City College uptown who actually, I guess, took pity on me because I probably killed him on the phone every other day because at some point they wanted me to take an English test and a math test, and I refused to do that just out of principle because of what I did in my life. I couldn't believe I had to take a math test. Anyway, he said, come on, you can come in. Go and see the grade advisor, set your schedule, and you can go. And that was 2016 when I finally felt that wonderful feeling of going.
Right. And you had always wanted to go back to City College, right? And
only.
Why City College?
A boy from Brooklyn, living on the streets basically, and never really exploring what college is. When I finally saw City College, it was like a revelation. I mean, it looked like another world. I mean, the buildings, the lawns, the going from one class to the other. I felt like I made it made big time.
When you first went back then.
My first impression, I was like flawed.
Right.
I just couldn't believe it, that here I am in this atmosphere.
Right.
Because it has a great campus. And it looked, like my impression would be like Hogwarts. It's like, you see this big, beautiful edifice all over the place. So that struck me.
Right. So that was then. So then all along when you're going to go back, you're going to go back there.
Going back
because you had this nostalgia.
Absolutely, going back there. That was
Right.
I didn't think of anything else.
Right.
That was the place to be.
So you start. It's as you said, 2016, and it's you're going to be in the Colin Powell School.
Right.
And as a political science and history.
I decided to major in political science, at least to have that as my Bachelor of Arts degree. And as I did that, of course, you take coordinating courses. And I took quite a few courses in history because I love history. And while I was there taking those courses, the dean of the history department mentioned maybe casually that they had a little bit of a mailer. And it said master's degree in history. And I started to read. She says, you can do that. You have enough credits in history now, and you could go ahead and you'll have to do some work, apply yourself to it, but you can go get yourself your master's in history. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, that was great. And I had to go to school at summer. I had summer school. I had summer school.
So the school was partly... You felt there was something missing that you wanted to accomplish.
Yes.
But you also had this feeling all these years that you wanted to be a teacher.
Absolutely. No question about it. I mean, it was what I think I strove for. People would even make fun of me because I would always want to give them a lesson on something. It was I had that very strange. I like to sit down and say, "This is what this kind of thing." So it was. I
so
knew
you were just a natural born teacher.
I just wanted to be a teacher.
Trapped in the body of a textile.
Exactly. You put it very well. That's so true. It's very true.
So you go back, and so what was it like? The first day you go back to the City College campus that you had this sort of idyllic memory of. What was that like?
I'll tell you what I did. I bought a backpack, as all the students do have. I went and got a backpack, or I think my wife may have bought me the backpack. I went to the school bookstore, and I bought my little notebooks. I bought all my little. I wanted to follow the whole procedure. I bought all the things I needed for school, and then my first day, I got up, whatever, and put my backpack on and went. I bought the books that they asked me to buy. I read the syllabus and they said, buy this book. I bought all the books, had all the books, and bright-eyed and busy.
And you're looking at all the buildings that you remember.
I walked in and I said, wow, I'm going to class. And I saw all these kids rushing and going back and forth. A few of them would think I was a professor. They'd say, oh, where is this room? I said, well, I'm not a professor. Right. That was the beginning. So I took that. That's the beginning. That was I just melded into the school. I mean, it was like, I'm going to do this. And 4 years was my goal. And it wasn't going to be longer than 4 years. Yeah. I kept on telling the grade advisor, I killed the grade advisor. No, you're going to, make sure I'm out of here in 2020. I want to graduate in 2020 because I wanted to get it done.
A lot, of course, had changed. I mean, you're looking around, and the students look different.
Yes, they do.
What was your impression?
Well, the students were totally different from when I went to school. I think it was mostly Jewish, Italian, and maybe African American. It was a mix of that. That was mostly everyone from all over the world was running to City College. I mean, I saw so many people from Africa, from Caribbean, from European countries. It was a polyglot and I began to just enjoy it so much because on a one-on-one level, when I began to be quote unquote friends, colleagues in class, because there's no barrier when you're in class. The teacher gives you an assignment. The guy next to you is going to say, Ciro, did you get that note? Can you text me and tell me what he said? So immediately I became part of the group and had coffee, and we went to have lunch. And I was just sitting there they didn't look at me as the big older man. I was just one of them. And that was really gratifying. And that's when I realized that they need something. They needed some assistance. I just picked up different things in the conversation. Where do you study? The apartment's very small. I study here. I do this because my brother and my sister bought. I hear I have to work. I have to get a job. I have to do this. I can't just go to school I have to have it. I have to get it, and I got to work hard to get it. How do I get a scholarship? All the things that I would hear, I said to myself, these kids really need some guidance.
So they kind of looked to you.
Yeah.
You became friends. You would go out and socialize.
Absolutely.
Socialize.
Absolutely. We went to. They invited
and
me.
got to know each other.
Yeah.
But they also looked at you as a mentor, maybe.
Yeah.
Somebody who's lived and
exactly.
And could help.
They looked at me. They looked at me both ways. It was kind of a combination of both.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be the seeds of when I graduated. Prior to that, I started to realize that not that the school I didn't have all those facilities. Maybe it does have a lot of facilities, but I felt that since City College is it's like 75-80%, not immigrants, mostly first generation students. Kids who are coming, their parents are either immigrants or they're immigrants coming to the school. They're from another world, and they hit City College like I hit City College. Very similar. I mean, they walk in. What is this?
So you felt related
very much so to what, and I would hear things that they would sense. Oh God, that happened to me too. Things like that. Your uncle would come over and say, "What are you going to college for? What do you need college for? Come on, you got a job." Get a job. They heard that too. Why waste your time, especially the women? They would hear that. Why are you wasting your time with college? Come on, you're going to get married soon. They would sort of tell me that, their stories, and I'd hear that. And then when I was graduating, I went to the Colin Powell School, the dean. I said, I think City College can really do something and really be of service to its students, and that's how the beginnings of this idea of a workshop for first-generation students came about. And the school was very, very interested. It was immediately, they said, this is a fabulous idea. It was like they just took it for what it was, and they loved it.
The idea is to help students at City College who are first-generation students.
Right.
And sort of navigate various issues.
Exactly. And it's psychological. Because imposter syndrome, they don't feel like they belong in many cases. They feel like, can I get a job? Can I fit in with this?
Did you feel that at one point?
I felt it when I first went to the textile company. How do you present yourself when you meet someone? With confidence and ability? Or do you sit there and go, oh, well, maybe they don't like me because of my color. Maybe they don't like me because of the way I dress. This imposter syndrome is infectious. It makes it takes the confidence away. So we want to make sure that we give them that feeling of well-being and confidence that the school is here to nurture you, to put you on that path,
right.
That you'll be okay. And if there are mentors that you need, we would have mentors for you. If it's financial information, it's financial. Social issues. Family issues.
Life coaching a little bit?
Life coaching.
And you lead the sessions along with, you have a guest speaker.
Yeah, we have guest speakers from City College who
Right.
would focus in on maybe internships, scholarships, financial support. They'd give them the news of what the City College offers them to participate.
Right.
And how you do it. The thing that I like to talk to them about is that they are not alone. That they have the ability to grow and to be successful. That there is nothing that could stop them if they feel comfortable. And we're here, or my story, if I could tell you my story and how I managed myself, not to be boastful and tell you that I did it specially, but my life story is your life story. It's the same. I was a first-generation student. I came to City College very little, didn't have any idea what was going on, and I didn't know where to go, how to see this, how to do that, and I tried to apply myself through City College. So we would like you, or we're here to, make that easier for you. And if I could help you with my life story, that would give me some great joy for you to take that confidence and go with it. I was so excited about it, and I kept on bothering my family about it. my son-in-law and my daughter have this fund that they use to contribute to many great causes, and they got so excited that we contacted City College, Colin Powell School, and they offered a fund to matching funds if City College would want to build an actual location for first-generation students and hire personnel, and that is already, in fact, a reality. There is an office. They will be building an actual office, so it's this workshop turned out to be quite a special thing.
Is there a common thread that even though you were born here, and your parents were, you're the first generation as a student, but their experience, in many cases, many of the students, but many of them have come from another country or speaking different languages. So how do you bridge that gap?
Well, I would say I was an immigrant because we lived in another world when I was growing up. For many, many years, it was very much an enclave. Many of us never got out of that neighborhood. They just stayed in that neighborhood. So these young people were living in their enclave, whatever country they were from. This is the customs and the mores and the religion that they lived with historically. I mean, for generations.
Right.
I had the same thing. We had certain mores and customs that we followed and we worked through, and all that stuff had to be shed. I had to start looking at the world in a different light. This whole background, there was some good to it, but you had to go ahead and eventually leave that behind. That was hard because you don't feel comfortable. You know, when you're in no man's land, you're not sure, am I on this side or that side? So I think my affinity to them was the same thing. They didn't have the English wasn't their first language, so they would feel not comfortable in speaking. But they're brilliant on paper, but to speak the language, they were very hesitant. And that all that stuff would take you back. It would hold you back from what you like to do. And I felt similar when I would meet people. How do you speak English? You know, how do you make sure you're speaking properly? Because you're talking to business people. In my case, and how do I introduce myself and tell them who I am and what I'm doing and how I'm going to apply my ware, how I'm going to sell you, basically.
Right.
They have to learn the same thing. They have to learn to go and sell themselves with confidence. And I think we could try to do that. We start it and try to build it up with them.
Right. So what have you learned in doing these workshops about the students, about this generation?
I think the generation that I've worked with through the 4 years of college and then with the workshops, I'm totally impressed with how they are able to navigate this world, how they can take in so much that's going on in this world, internationally and domestically. I mean, they are so strong in that sense, and really very, very interested in learning. That's a common thread right through all the students I met, applying themselves to it and making sure they were successful. Some of them had parents who were really very, into the education. Others, it was really, I've got to do this. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a lawyer. Ciro, I'm going to be a lawyer. I said, fine. And they have this sort of, let me say this. The American government was not very happy at the time with immigration. It didn't affect them at all. It was around us. The Trump era was around us. That didn't really crack into them. That was like, we'll get over this. They didn't have that feeling of, oh boy, this is really terrible. Nothing. And of course, they were very, one I have to say, very respectful. There was a lot of respect for me. They were very, my age. Eventually, they would say, Ciro, thank you very much. I would get that. That was always very gratifying. And I met them on their level. I mean, in many cases, we were like studying together in groups, and just and I started to hear whether they from a Muslim family, from a Christian family, from a Jewish family. I mean, it was just not. We were all the same. I think that's what they come out with when they begin to. The easy thing in college, I found was when you're a first-generation student, you want to go for the people that you know. I looked for the people I knew, for my background. If I met any kids from Brooklyn or from Italian American, I would want to hang out with them. It was comforting to me. When I came here at City College, there was a similar attitude. If I was from this country, I would sort of have friends and have my little casual group because it became comforting for them. That's the part they go, oh boy, we could relax. I can speak the dialect. I can get we can go get our food. We want to get. It was very common where you had groups, and I like to bust that open. I kept on saying, don't do that. Don't be doing. That's too easy.
Yeah.
I kept, don't do that. And they would laugh at me. I said, don't do that. Meet other people. Go and meet other people.
So are you going to be able to fulfill your dream of being a teacher?
Well, good thing you've asked. I actually was online since 2020. I was online to try to get a teaching job, basically not in the public school system because I didn't do the education courses at school. That was an extra 2 years. But I went for private schools who don't need that particular background. And I kept on applying on these websites, all these job websites for I don't know how long, so 2020, so now and I kept on getting a couple of Zoom meetings, whatever. I kept on sending out my resume, and I had a friend from school who did great resumes, and I sent her my resume. And she's getting her master's somewhere I think she's in D.C. now, and she sent it back and made corrections. This is my colleagues from school. So, and I all of a sudden I went on and I said, you know what? Maybe I should be a substitute teacher. Maybe that would be the stepping stone. If I do well, maybe they will promote me. So I went on substitute teaching. And I got a call back from a wonderful school in Brooklyn Heights called Mary McDowell. They're a very wonderful Quaker-driven school, and they interviewed me on Zoom. And the next day, she called me and said, "You got the job if you want to be a sub." So I subbed that was since probably October 2021. I was subbing, and then you just asked the question. Just 2 days ago, they called me in and they offered me a teaching job.
Oh, how about
and
that?
I would teach history. How do you like that?
Congrats! So
I'm like
you accepted, I assume.
Of course, I said they couldn't. I said definitely. So I will be teaching history courses to high school. Finally, the circle is closed.
Right. Well, that's a great note to end on.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for
Thank you
coming
for having
in
me.
and talking about it. It's a great story. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.